Hey guys, my name is Kylie, and if you're watching this video, you're probably trying to prepare to take your NCLEX or will take it soon. I recently just took my NCLEX and passed, so before I tested, I really looked on YouTube. I watched a lot of videos about what people did to study, just their personal experiences, because I struggled from a lot of test anxiety and I just felt like it really helped me. So I wanted to make a video just to kind of do the same for those of you out there that are nervous. So I kind of just want to get right into it and talk about my specific experience and then go over kind of what I did to study and the pros and cons to what I did. So basically I just graduated nursing school in December 13th I graduated. I took my, and it's now February. Yeah, I took my test January 29th. So basically, I graduated the 13th of December, and from then until the new year, I really didn't study at all. I was in the process of moving and spending time with family because they were all down there to see me graduate. And the only thing I did was listen to these podcasts. My friend had sent me them from an in-person live review. It was kind of like an overview of peds, OB, pharm, that kind of stuff. So I did listen to those. I took some notes, but I wasn't doing anything crazy. And then I got my ATT and I scheduled my NCLEX for the 29th of January. So from the 1st of January to the 29th is when I did all of my studying. And I first purchased UWorld. I'd heard from friends that were older than me that they really loved UWorld and they thought it was really good. And so I bought it. I think it was like $150, something like that. And it comes with 2,000 questions in a question bank, and then it came with 2 self-assessments. So the self-assessments are basically to like gauge how ready you are to take the NCLEX. It'll rank you in a percentile, and then based on the percentile it'll say like not, or like borderline, likely, highly likely, and then like very highly likely or something. So there's 4 different categories. And so I started off doing UWorld. I was doing like 150 to 200 questions a day. I kind of was not super motivated. And then I got through the first about 1,000 questions and I kind of panicked. I felt like my test date was getting sooner. I wasn't prepared. And so I took that first assessment just to gauge where I was. When I took the first self-assessment, there were just 75 questions and it scored me in the 73rd percentile, which placed me very, like the highest category you could get, like very likely to pass. So I felt pretty good. Definitely better. I was having a little bit of a panic attack. So I finished UWorld's, the next 1,000 UWorld questions. So I finished their 2,000 question bank. And I didn't take the second assessment yet. I wanted to save that for when I was a little bit closer. At this point, I decided, I was about 2 weeks out from my test date. I decided to go back and do the ones I got incorrect on UWorld. I thought that would be the best use of my time. So as I started to do this, I quickly realized that I'm the type of person that I was remembering the question, which if you don't remember, then that's great. But I really was like, oh, I remember this question, this is the answer. I didn't feel like I was learning, and I wish I could be the type of person that just sat there and read the rationales and was like, okay, it's in my head. That's not how I am. I really have to just base my knowledge on the question, like, okay, do I know this or do I not know it? I was reading the rationales. I just felt like it wasn't a good gauge of if I was progressing or not because I was remembering the questions. So I really started to panic and I went out and bought Kaplan. From the start, my university really pushed Kaplan. They do make the test, they do make the NCLEX, so it makes sense. But I've never been a huge fan of Kaplan, so that's why I initially went with UWorld, and I feel like UWorld's great. But I did buy Kaplan because I wanted those extra questions, those new questions I hadn't done before. So I know there's a lot of different levels and different packages you can buy with Kaplan. I was not gonna do the in-person one. No, I was too close to my test date. And so I bought the package. I think it was originally $200, and I got it on sale for like, again, $150. And this package for Kaplan came with another additional 2,000 question bank And then it came with 4 practice assessments. So each practice assessment was different. I think the first 2 were just like a general practice. And then the third one was who do you see first? So it was a prioritization test. And then the 4th one was alternate format, which basically was select all that apply. Every single question was that. And then it came with 3 what they call CAT assessments. So it was computer adapted tests. So this really intrigued me because it's supposed to be the closest experience to NCLEX that you can get. For me, I think I mentioned it, I struggle from test anxiety. I've just never been a good test taker all throughout nursing school. I really struggled. I'm the type of person that would do really well in the clinical experience, and then when it came to the test, no. I just always got really nervous and just felt like it wasn't a true gauge of my knowledge, but I just really let things get to me. And so I was super excited for the adapted test because I felt like this was going to help me get ready for NCLEX to how it was going to look. And so I started to get through Kaplan. I did about 1,000 questions of their question bank, and I did the 4 practice exams, as I mentioned, and then I decided to do the first adapted test. So when I took it, I tried to make it exactly like the NCLEX. I could put my phone away. I had no notes, obviously. And I got through it. It took me 265 questions, and I panicked. I remember finishing that test and crying. Like, I was like, you know, UWorld said I was very likely to pass. Why didn't I pass in 75? Like, is this what's really gonna happen to me? And I just kind of had to get a little bit of a reality check, because I think that's the biggest mistake people make, is thinking that they're gonna get 75 questions. So I did pass, or like according to Kaplan, I got a green. At the end of your adapted test, they show you each category and they break it down. Yellow is like meets standard, so it's like average. Green is good, and then red is obviously like you need to work on this. So my first test I passed, but I had yellows and reds, no green. I felt really upset and scared and nervous, and this freaked me out. I was like a week out from my test and I panicked. So from there I was like, okay, just do more questions, do more of the practice questions. So I just kept every single day. I did a little bit of Kaplan and just a little bit of UWorld. I'm gonna go into specifics of pros and cons later, but that's what I did. And then as it got closer, I took my second computer adapted test, and this time I got to 180 questions and it shut off. And again, I passed. I had all yellows and no reds this time. So I felt a little better. I was like, okay, like, you know, it's still not 75, but you passed and like you're making progress. So that made me feel really good. So I just kept chugging along. One thing I was doing is from those podcasts I mentioned earlier, I had made a study guide. And so every night I was going through the study guide before I went to bed, just to kind of solidify those like easy facts, like, you know, your acid-base, stuff like that. And then like 2 days before my NCLEX, I took the last computer adapted test and I got to 150 and it shut off and I passed, and I had greens and yellows, no reds. So I felt good. And then yeah, I just studied my study guide. I did more practice questions, and then the day before NCLEX, super important, I took the day off. I didn't do any studying. Everyone kind of tells you this, and I'm the type of person that I was really skeptical. I was like, I cannot take a day off studying, but I think it is important to like mentally get yourself ready for the test. Yeah, I don't know. Do some self-care, hang out with your friends. Just, if you don't know it by now, like, you're not gonna know it. And you're gonna stress yourself out the day before the test if you're doing questions and getting them wrong. Like, you're just gonna be so much more stressed than if you just take the day off. The one thing I did do, because I could not bring myself to take an entire day off, was I did just keep running through my study guide. That was something that like I felt like wouldn't stress me out because I had been going through it every single day. It was more of like just review versus like doing questions and getting them wrong and stressed. So yes, and then I took my test. So nervous. I can't even explain to you guys how nervous I was. I was like shaking going in. I definitely went in with the mindset that I was going to get 265, and that's something I want to talk about because I think it's really important. I already said it, but do not expect to get 75. If you get 75, that's amazing, but I think a big mistake people make is not being prepared mentally or physically for 265 questions. I think you don't think it's going to happen to you, and you go in, and if you're not ready to take that entire test, it's gonna hurt you in the long run. If you're expecting 75 and you hit 200, 250, you're gonna get anxiety. Like, that's normal for everyone to get test anxiety, especially if like you're like, why is the test not shutting off? Why did I not pass yet? Am I not smart enough to pass in 75? Like, be prepared, bring food, bring water to the testing center, so that way when you take your breaks, you can drink water and have food. Like, don't think, oh, I'm gonna be done in 75, like I can eat after. So I really went in with that mindset, and mine shut off at 78, not 75, 78. And that was something too that I was nervous about. Like, I think everyone, when they hit question 76, they kind of panic, like, oh crap, like I couldn't pass yet. So mine turned off at 78, and I didn't know what to feel. I was consistently on the Kaplan getting like, 150, 180, 265. Like, I never did it shut off at 75. So when I hit 76, I was like, okay, like, you're fine. It shut off at 78, and I was like, what? Like, I freaked out. I left the test center, and I called everyone, and I was like, it shut off at 78. Like, I think I failed it. Like, I don't understand. Like, I was supposed to get more. So I think I was like opposite of everyone. Like, I was confused why I didn't get more questions. I went home that night. Like, they immediately emailed me and said, like, thank you for taking your NCLEX. And so my friends were like, you can do the Pearson VUE trick. And so I was really hesitant to do the trick because I was like, oh, what if it doesn't work? I don't want to stress myself out. Well, I couldn't wait, and so I did the trick, and it said I got the good message or whatever. So I felt a little better, but I was like really skeptical. Like, as I said, I've never been a good test taker. Well, after 2 days, I found out I passed, and I was like so surprised. Not because I didn't believe in myself, but just like, I was like, holy crap, like, I did it. So that's my experience. If you guys were interested, I don't know if you were, but I just kind of wanted to walk you through how I studied and everything that I did. And obviously, you don't need to buy 2 study methods. I think I was like a bit extra on that, but I had really bad anxiety. I was like crying every night. I was super stressed. So for me, that's what I needed to do, but I don't think that you need to buy 2 at all. And so I wanted to kind of go over my experience with UWorld and Kaplan. So for UWorld about first, I love UWorld. I think it was so great. My friends told me they felt like UWorld was harder than NCLEX, and I don't really feel like that, but I feel like the rationales are amazing. They give you like a paragraph like for every single thing in pictures, and for me, I'm a very visual learner, so I needed that. And they would tell you why something was wrong, and they would tell you why it was right. So I felt like the rationales were amazing. And although the questions on NCLEX are never going to be exactly like UWorld or Kaplan or Hearst or whatever, I felt like the rationales gave me the knowledge to answer the questions I did get on NCLEX. So I loved UWorld. I can only say good things about it. I think the price was right. I mean, it's a little spendy, but it's your license, so I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, it wasn't like outrageously expensive compared to Kaplan or anything else. I paid the same. Yeah, I love UWorld. Big fan. Kaplan, I'm mixed. I feel like Kaplan is a lot of money. I paid the same, but only because I got Kaplan on a discount. So I feel like Kaplan is more expensive, and I don't feel like it was worth it, honestly. I think I bought it because I was panicking. And I had a unique experience with Kaplan where mine actually stopped working. I had a lot of technical difficulties, and I basically wasn't able to use it as often as I liked. I wasn't able to use the question bank as often as I like. It's kind of a long story, but their customer service wasn't great in terms of I paid, a lot of money for your service and it's not working, and you're not gonna fix it in a timely manner, and you're not gonna give me my money back. So wasn't super thrilled with Kaplan. I felt like the rationale sucked. They'd give you like one sentence, and Yeah, that's not how I learn. Sorry. So if you're the type of person that can just do a bunch of questions and learn from it, then that's great. Kaplan's probably great for you. But you know, like I said, everyone learns differently, and for me, it was not working. I will say that their computer adapted tests were amazing in terms of, I felt like it gave me a reality check. Like I said earlier, like it showed me that, you know, you might not get 75 questions, and it prepared me to take a long test. The layout was just like it was kind of with NCLEX. Like I felt like in terms of how the screen was set up, and it just gives you a good gauge of like the topics that maybe you need to work on more. It also, like I'm the type of person, so I feel like when you have anxiety, when you sit down and do something that's like identical to what you're going to do, it almost eases some of the anxiety because it helps you know what to expect. So I really do feel like in that sense, Kaplan was great. I'm really glad I purchased it for that reason only. But however, like if I had to choose again between just Kaplan or just UWorld, I would definitely go with just UWorld because their rationales are so much better, and it worked. So in terms of technical difficulties, there were none. So that's my insight to both my study methods. I know there's others out there. These are just the ones I did, and they might not work for you, and that's okay. Another thing I wanted to kind of touch on is you have to do what works for you. I felt like I really reached out to a lot of my friends for advice on how they studied, what they did, and some of the stuff I was just like, no, and that's okay. Like just because something worked for someone else, it might not work for you. Like you made it through 2 years of nursing school, taking tests based on your study techniques and your study habits, and I think it's really important to stick with those. Like they got you this far, and they worked. Like you wouldn't be here preparing for the NCLEX if you failed out, right? So just because something worked for me or your friend doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like really stick to your study habits, and you know, choose whatever you want as your supplemental study aid. I think UWorld's great. Kaplan's probably great for some people too, but you know, do what you have to do, and don't listen so much to what other people say you have to do. Like you don't have to do anything. Kaplan might be better for you, UWorld might be better for you, but you might just be able to, you might need a live in-person review. Like just really listen to yourself. And as far as study techniques, that's kind of all I have to say. And then for the anxiety portion, I know anyone is going to get stressed out taking this test. So like I said, prepare for 265 and be pleasantly surprised by anything less. And just take your breaks. Like I would suggest, I mean, I didn't have to take a break. I was lucky that my test turned off soon, but I was preparing to take a break at either the 2-hour mark or the 100 question mark. Even if you don't want to get up and like, because I know getting back in, you have to scan your hand in and everything like that. If you just need to take a minute at the computer, like take a second, breathe. Don't get so worked up that you stop reading the questions, because that's where you're going to get yourself into trouble. You just have to keep telling yourself every question counts. It's not, you can't have like a finish line in mind, like, oh, once I get to 65, once I get to 75, it's going to shut off. No, like every question counts, because that question is going to determine your next question. So just take your time and breathe, and don't be afraid to take your breaks. And just trust yourself, because you're smart, and if you got this far and you made it through nursing school, like you will pass the NCLEX. You know, you just have to put in the work and trust yourself. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and it helped somebody out there. And yeah, thank you.